He changed,
Yeah,
rearranged,
and I know,
changed my life from a living hell.
but I'm glad,
So glad that he changed.
I'm glad about it.
So glad that he changed.
Oh, I'm glad
So glad that he changed.
he changed my life,
Changed my life from a living hell.
but he changed,
He changed,
yes he did,
rearranged,
and I know that,
changed my life from a living hell.
but I'm glad,
So glad that he changed.
I'm so glad, y'all.
So glad that he changed.
Oh, I'm glad,
So glad that he changed.
and he changed my life.
Changed my life from a living hell.
Listen, created me a clean heart, Lord, and renew the right spirit in me. Oh Lord, I need your salvation. I know salvation is free. Oh, I'm standing on God's word, and I shall not be moved. Oh,
So glad that he changed.
setting in, y'all.
So glad that he changed.
Oh, I'm glad, yeah. He changed my life,
Changed my life from a living hell.
but he changed,
He changed,
yes he did,
rearranged,
and I know that,
changed my life from a living hell.
but I'm glad,
So glad that he changed.
you ought to hear me now.
So glad that he changed.
I'm glad that it laid his hand on me.
He changed,
Oh,
changed my life
yeah,
from a living hell.
created me a clean heart, Lord, and renew the right spirit in me. Oh Lord, I need your salvation. I read where salvation is free. I keep on trusting in Jesus. I'm gonna keep on holding to his hand. Oh,
So glad that he changed.
somebody ought to be a witness.
So glad that he changed.
I'm glad he changed me.
So glad that he changed.
He changed my life.
Changed my life from a living hell.
Oh, he changed.
So glad,
I'm glad.
so glad,
I'm glad.
so glad,
And tell everybody
so glad,
he changed me.
so glad,
I was nothing but a little boy,
so glad,
only 11 years old.
so glad,
God changed my life.
so glad,
I've been all over,
so glad,
all over the world.
so glad,
I'm glad.
so glad,
I'm glad about it.
so glad,
Oh, he changed. He's changed me.
so glad,
Let me tell you something.
so glad,
What God will do
so glad,
if you hold on
so glad,
to God's unchanging hand. He'll change your life.
so glad,
Yes, He will.
so glad,
Oh,
so glad,
so glad, y'all.
so glad,
So glad.
so glad,
I'm so glad, y'all.
so glad,
Gonna keep on talking about
so
it
glad,
everywhere I go.
so glad,
Oh,
so glad,
I'm glad.